All right, Holy Culture fam, and welcome back to the show. We have our guest here today, Scribe Music. Scribe, thank you so much for being here today.
What's up, man? Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored letting the Canadian get on board.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Canadian Christian hip hop is a thing, and there's a
Yes, sir.
ton of artists up there. I need to just do a full set on the radio show, just include only Canadian Christian hip hop artists, because some people just don't know. They really don't know Scribe.
Right, right. There's a lot out here, man, and a lot of guys that are really doing it well. And
Yep.
I could start rattling off names, but I won't do that because I'm gonna miss someone, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, okay, Scribe, it's like that."
They absolutely are. Because I started to name a few, and I was like, you know what, B,
Don't
just
do it.
slow down, don't do it, don't do it. But yeah, tell the people a little bit about you before we hop into this conversation.
Yeah. So my name is Scribe. I am a recording artist based out of BC, British Columbia, Canada. The most close area that people will understand is Vancouver. So like, not Clyde is my neighbor out here. And
Okay.
man, I've been making music for since for a long time, but really started trying to pursue it and take it seriously since about 2016. I'm happily married to my wife Jasmine. We'll be celebrating 10 years at the end of September,
Let's go.
and yeah, we got a 6-year-old little princess who rules the world. Who rules the
Hmm.
world? I got a son who is her. I would say it definitely her number two, as in like they need to get in some trouble. He is right around the way. He's got no problem helping her out with that. But they are amazing kids. My family loves the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm a worship leader at my local church, Love Quest International Church. Shout out to my pastors, Pastor Terrence and Julia Richmond. They are
That's
an
dope.
incredible pastors, fathers of our father and mother to our house, like in a lot of ways. And
Okay.
um, they're fantastic people. And man, what else you want to know?
That's dope,
I
man. I love, and it's actually you. You're a great follow on Twitter. They want me to call it X. I'm calling it Twitter.
We call it
You
Twitter.
yeah, you're a great follow on there. You actually just tweeted recently about how just asking artists like how plugged in are they to their church.
Hmm.
And I thought that was really dope. It was fun to hear the responses, and I was happy
Hmm.
to see some of the final results of that poll. That a lot of people are plugged in, but there are some artists that aren't plugged
Yeah.
in. I told you before we got started that I'm a fan of you as an artist, and also just you as a man of God. So we can probably talk forever. Hopefully, this won't be the last time on the show. But let's get to why I asked you to join us today. I started the Lord prompted me to start a CHH prayer calendar a few years back, and so I've been doing
Mhm.
that for maybe 2 years now. And that was something that I've passed off to Holy Culture Radio. I still am very involved in helping put that together. But
Yeah.
earlier this week, I tweeted out that the 30 Days of Prayer is starting, and I had a playlist of songs in CHH that are talking about prayer. And I just posted it, and I said, "Hey, tell me your favorites." You responded with one of your songs that I didn't know. Now, I didn't know
Mhm.
about you until about 2019, so I
I ain't
missed this.
mad at you.
It,
I said, I'm not mad at you. You good.
Yeah, yeah. So, cause like I just that's when I hopped back on the social media, and you have a song that you posted on there called "The Art of Knowing."
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
second I heard it, I was at work. The second I heard it, I was just like, I feel like this song is like the heart of like why this. I feel like the 30 Days of Prayer or 40 Days of Prayer, I did that in the past of why it's
Mm.
so important. So I had the song on repeat, Scribe. Like I'm not lying for like a couple of days. Just like that was the song I was kept
Wow.
going to. So it might have been yesterday or the day before. I just hit you up like, hey, do you have Telegram? And we just started a conversation. Um, and I invite you on the show, and here you are today. So talk to me about the song, or really just the title of the song, "The Art of
Yeah.
Knowing."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, artists in and of it, like to the third degree, man, we're always
Mhm.
trying to find the creative ways of compelling people to listen to our music.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of the titles that we'll choose just don't pull people, right? Like,
Yeah.
if this it's a song about communing with God. It's a song about having a relationship with God. And sometimes, like, I remember as I was going through the lyrics and trying to find a theme that I really liked, I was realizing, I'm like, man, I don't want just a cookie cutter title, because oftentimes, you just title it whatever the chorus is saying. But the art of knowing is that it speaks to this like beautiful, creative aspect that comes into our relationship with God. Like the art of knowing God truly is pursuing him. And that was what I wanted people to get out of it, because when you listen to the song, you hear the chorus, it says, I just want to know you better. I just want to know you better. And it's not for the sake of purely head knowledge, but it's like in relationship. And so what does that come from? Like the art of knowing God better is actually pursuing him day to day. Just you think about a person's spouse. It's like, if I really want to know who my wife is, I can't just say that. I actually have to actively pursue her. And I call it the art because, like art, like a tapestry, like a painting, there are so many, it's multifaceted, right? Some paintings you'll look at for the brush texture. Some paintings you'll look at for the color combination. Some, it's literally just the packaging that it's in. But there's depth to this walk with the Lord that I really believe helps bring out, for better word, and the best way I could say this, that really kind of brings out the God colors in this world, if that makes sense.
Man, it really does. And it's funny that you brought up about like that husband and wife relationship, because I just celebrated 12 years. So welcome
Congratulations.
to the over the decade club. And you think about knowing somebody, and as a married person, the person who should know you the best on this earth should probably be your wife.
It better be.
Right. And if it ain't, then there's a slight problem, more than a slight problem.
Right.
But you have, I was just listening to this, and some of this, what I'm about to say is actually from another podcast by Preston Morrison. He has a podcast called The Leader's Cut. He had on Tim Ross, and they were talking about like this concept of like communication. And you have your intimate times with your spouse, but you also have just like those informational times. And if the only times you're waiting for good communication is times when you want to be intimate, like you're missing out on so much more conversation.
Big time.
And like
big time.
The phone calls, just sometimes we just communicating through memes back and forth, or just like you can't have an inside joke if you're not spending constant time with each other. And I feel like
facts.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I totally agree. I mean, and isn't that a wild concept to really think that you and God could have inside jokes? Some people be like, hey, Scribe, what do you mean you could have an inside joke with God? Well, think about any time in your life where, for example, you had an Abraham and Sarah moment where he's like, Sarah, you're gonna have a child, and she laughed.
Yeah.
That the inside joke that became that they would be the father of nations. That one day this child is born, and all of a sudden, you don't think that she sat up there like, wait a minute. And I really laughed at you. And I feel like God is doing that with us all the time. But our faith sometimes, where our faith is at, is always going to be determined by that initial response to God saying something that seems crazy to us. But that's the whole inside joke with God. He's just like, I bet you actually don't have to believe me at the scale you think. I just need a little bit of belief. Just that little bit of belief. I'm gonna work with that.
Yep. Just a little bit of it. So as we keep on talking, actually, what I want to do here, I want to pause here so our Holy Culture family can hear the song, just so they can understand why I was so gripped by the song. So let's go ahead and pause right here. This is the Be Positive Music Show. I'm hanging out with Scribe Music, and you guys check out this song. It's called The Art of Knowing, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, I just want to know you better. Yeah, I just want to know you better, know you better. I solemnly swear that I'ma tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I'm asking, will you help me, God? I've been lying to myself about a situation. It seems it ain't what it seems, and here's the indication.
You are now tuned in to the #1 station for Christian hip hop and R&B, Holy Culture Radio on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back, HCR fam. I know you guys enjoyed that song, Scribe. Now, you say you're a CHH artist, but that's you on the vocals, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Don't sleep on Scribe with the vocals. I really enjoyed it, man. The song, the flow. We'll talk about some of the lyrics that I really enjoyed in this song, but the vocals at the end, it was wonderful. It was a perfect
Thank
ending
you.
to a really dope song. So, were you a rapper first or a singer first? How would you put it?
I was definitely a singer first, but not a
Okay.
confident one. So
Oh,
I'll say it like this: like I grew up. I mean, I'm a pastor's son. Shout out to
mhm,
mom and pops.
mhm.
Um, I was raised in the church, and so my father is a worship leader. I say even if he's not leading worship, I say he's a worship leader because that man at any point could pick up a guitar and lead a congregation. So
Oh,
um,
no.
him being a worship leader meant that our house was just saturated in music, and he had a very eclectic um, catalog, I would say. You know, he wasn't purely just going to listen to one genre of music. He loved everything. He'd be listening to CCM one day, the next he's like, hey son, the Celtic singers are performing, and I'm like, okay, dad. But um that what that afforded me was early exposure to singing. Like I'd be singing in my room all the time. I'd be singing in my house, and it really started as emulating. I was never confident with my own singing voice because it was never something that was I had the opportunity to develop really at a younger age. I was singing a lot, but I didn't think it was cool. I didn't really like my voice. I mean, my voice is deep now, but back in the day, like most kids, it was super high. And so I wasn't confident in it. And some of my favorite vocalists, like, you know, I think about Brian McKnight back in the day,
The
like
falsetto.
that, his voice, I was like, exactly like that man could go, had crazy range. Me, I did
Yeah.
not. And I didn't have any professional teaching. I just learned
Mhm,
by emulating. But as
mhm.
time would go on, even me becoming a rapper was on a dare. I grew up, I came from the poetry world. Like I love
Okay.
writing poetry. And one day someone just said, you should try and do this to a beat. And I was like, that's so cliche, bro. Like I'm not trying to be another rapper. I don't need to do all that. They're like, just try. I did it. I released it on early stage Facebook pages. And then a producer from back home that was actually like popping off was like, man, I want to produce your first song. My first song was like hip hop infused with singing because man,
Okay.
I'm a worshiper through and through, and so that's kind of where it came from. And then as I kind of moved along in my career, many of the circles I was around, as far as hip hop artists, none of them could sing. They found out I could
Mm.
sing, so I started doing
Okay.
everybody's hooks all the time. So that naturally allowed me to develop and you add in worship leading, you add in concerts, you add in experimentation in the studio. It brought me to this place of, okay, this is what I can do with my voice.
That's great. That's great. That's also great to hear that. Well, it's not great to hear. It's encouraging. That's probably a better way of putting it. To hear that even people who are really talented have their moments of like, man, like, am I really? Is this really a gift that I can use? And or is it really like I don't feel like I'm good enough for this, or I don't have the right voice for it.
Uh-huh.
I think
Mhm.
about that. I think about that myself. We were just talking before we started that like I always enjoyed radio, but I was just like I don't have a
Mhm.
radio, so
Right.
I'm not going to do it. And we were
But
laughing.
here's my question. It's like, what's a radio voice? It's a confident one,
Yep, it's somebody who just knows their stuff
period.
and they're just being themselves. So that's
Yep.
what I had to kind of overcome. So it's encouraging to hear that even some people your favorite artist sometimes goes through some of those same things, so it's best just
Mhm.
to kind of push through it and just be the person who got called you to be. So
Yep.
let's get into the song. There's a few lyrics in the actual song that I want us to kind of touch on.
So when I wrote this song in about 2016, I
Mhm.
had come off the back of leaving a hip hop group that I was a part of at the time. And the that group really gave me my start, my first exposure to being a Christian hip hop artist. Just traveling around Canada, all over the place,
Okay.
um, up on reserves and all these different things. I just found myself getting these opportunities all the time, but my actual time with God was decreasing
Mm.
because here's a challenge for people that are in ministry. When the Bible becomes a textbook, when it becomes a keynote speech, or when it purely becomes a song, you run the risk of becoming lukewarm, quite honestly, because you know so much about God, but you're not actually making time to spend with him, communing with him. And what I would say then is the reason some people may not think I was lying. It's like, well, here's the thing. This is why it's a lie. Because I'm standing on these stages, standing on these platforms, telling young people, man, you got to pursue God. You need God. And like, I've seen this in my own life and did it. And what I'm saying is the truth. But the application in my own life is causing my truth to be a lie. But thanks be to God that his word will not return to him void. So when I'm declaring this, it's the truth. I know this is the active truth, the living truth, but I'm not walking in it. And I think sometimes as artists, when you come, especially Christian artists, man, whether you're in the direct CHH world or you're in the marketplace, but a believer, man, we all come to this place where we have to ask ourselves, man, when was the last time I spent time on my face before God? When was the last time I really studied his word to study his word? Not for a song, not for a message, not for to perform it, not for a cool little clip on Instagram, but when was the last time I studied his word for me and him? And that's where that lyric came from.
And that's such a great challenge, even for somebody like myself, who does have a radio show, who does do YouTube, who does work in missions. We were talking about that also. Like, I work in the Christian environment, but it's like, when have you stopped to do something for you to eat? You can't constantly be feeding. You're constantly feeding, but you're not actually nourishing your own self. So I thought that was just a really good way to start the song, because that was like right at the beginning. Like, as soon as the song started, that was what you led with, and it was very vulnerable. And I think a lot of times believers can speak from a place of strength, but they're always like doing the Monday morning quarterback after some big Christian artist is on some platform or something. We sit back on our armchairs and say like, oh, they should have said it this way. They should have did it that way. Or if I went through that, I just would have done this. It's like, fam, like, that's one of my biggest pet peeves about sometimes the Christian YouTube world. It's like a lot of people who, man, they're constantly just searching for planks, planks, and it's just like it's not authentic. And I feel like a song like this, and a lot of Christian hip hop artists do it. They're very vulnerable, and they'll talk about their weaknesses in the songs. And I think it really blesses the body when artists are able to do that and do it well, because it almost reads like a diary. Go ahead.
And here's the flip side. Here's the flip side of this for any artists that are listening. I find where we got to be careful too is that not all of our songs are all just like about woe is me, I'm this horrible, nasty Christian. Like, that's not what makes a song real either, right? Like that's not the requirement to like, oh, he just being real. If I'm rejoicing in the goodness of God and how faithful he has been to me and to my family, you know, like oh my God flex vibes, like that is just as authentic. The biggest thing that I want to encourage artists is make sure it's the yes and, you know, you're presenting both sides of the gospel and of the faith, right? There's always this form of victory. When you look at the Psalms of David, you know, the OG songwriter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
On one page, he's saying, man, I bless the Lord, but if you could smash my enemies against these rocks, that'd be great. Like,
that would be awesome.
Man, like David was wild.
He was praying against for the death of their kids in some scriptures. I'm like now here's Dave.
And if I were to put that in a song, man, we'd be having a very different conversation, wouldn't we? Like, if I were to put that in my music melodically, and people are like, oh, what he just say? I think people would be shocked. But when you read the scriptures, when you read one of the figureheads of what it was to songwrite in scripture, he was giving us both. That's the point I'm trying to make, is he was not afraid to go before God with his pains, his frustrations, and then come around the corner and say, but you're still God. And you know, it's your call.
Yeah. That's really good, man. That's so good. That's so good. Let's keep going. Let's grab this next bar here that I enjoyed. And again, for our radio listeners, I'll read this. It says, "Are we walking or running? I pray you guide me, because I try all on my own. I tried to sound instead of watching your throne." When it just sounds good. Of course, you said it a lot better than me, But I gotta let our radio listeners in on what we're talking about. So just talk about talk about that bar.
So well, first, are we walking or running? I pray you guide me. I mean, jealousy and envy is killing progress. It's killing people's journey in a lot of ways, because your eyes are set on where somebody else is already at, and you're not paying attention to where God has you. And that's just it. It's like, maybe I'm walking in this season with you, God, or maybe I'm running in this season with you, God. But either way, I need to know that I'm doing it with you, right? I can't remember the specific passage, but it says, if your presence doesn't go with me, I'm not going. Like, that's the heart posture that I want to have. Is like, God, if you're not going, I don't care what the tempo is. You set the tempo. We're gonna run this together, but I'm not going unless you go with me. If you're not over there, I'm not going. Like, and this is what I've had to learn very actively, even as an artist. If you think about your gift as sowing a seed, this is what my pastor challenges me all the time. You think about your gift as a seed. Where are you sowing? Are you sowing into good ground? Are you sowing into fertile soil? And here's a quick challenge for you. Is that ministry one that I would actually be okay to sow into financially, and then also send people to go be equipped, led, and grow there? If I'm not willing to say that, like truly go out on a limb and say that, then I'm hard pressed to decide whether or not I should be sowing into it. I know this may not be everybody's conviction, but it's just something to think about. And so that's that walking or running. Like, I have to go at God's pace, because maybe that is a good place to be sowing into, but I'm not ready to properly sow. Right. I won't effectively sow into it.
Man, that was profound. I really feel like that was profound, because I think a lot of times we think of our gifts as the fruit. Like, people like, God's given me this gift and people are eating off of this fruit, which is the case. But the slight mindset change to think about your gift as being seeds that you're sowing, that can really change in your approach and how you do your ministry, how you do your art,
who you connect with, who you chat with, who you're aligned with. Like, I'm sowing seeds. Like, I remember when I would just accept any feature. I would accept any feature, bro, because I had a heart. I'm like, and from a great, genuine place where I was like, man, I just want to help people out. And it wasn't until I had some leaders in my life that reminded me of that. You know, like, this idea of sowing seed into people is not a new idea per se, but I really didn't see it in my own life until I had leaders say, like, that person that you're giving your song to, like, your anointed voice, you know what I mean? Like, telling me all the things that he knows about who I am as a man and my heart. Is that someone who's gonna steward that, or are you throwing pearls before the swine? And I was like, hold on, like, I don't want to think of them as swine. He's like, no. It's not so much the person, but it's the way that what they're gonna do with it that can be likened to that of which you would throw it into a pig pen. And that rattled me. One of my elders said it like this. He's like, you got to be willing to shake the tree, knowing that other people are going to get the fruit first. And this is where really the crux of that line comes from. It's like, I got to be willing to go at God's pace, whatever he's asking of me, regardless of where my friends are at and what they're doing. That might mean I got to go before my friends do, so that they can eat off of the wisdom and whatever growth that God has given me.
That's good. That's really good. That's really good. I'm so much enjoying this conversation. And this can't be your last time. This can't be your last time. And then I also, the last thing about that bar I enjoyed was just like the crown and the thorn, the crown and the throne. That we are hardwired to want to get the glory. It's like we want our credit. We want people to understand that the energy, and I get it, there's a tension there. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but there's a tension in people honoring you. But sometimes we really do want the crown. A lot of times we really are trying to build our empire instead of worrying about the kingdom. So I thought that was a really, really dope bar as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's you can say it like this. I mean, some people pursue God for favor, but when you
Mhm.
pursue God for God, favor comes. So it's like this idea, like when you're looking in scripture and you see this idea that they were crowned with glory, but then they laid their crowns at his feet. It was because God, I, I I'm pursuing you for you. I want all that you are. I want this relationship above all else. You know what the crown was for? The crown was to symbolize to everybody else the authority, the mantle that has been put on this person. Think about it for a moment. If a
Mhm.
king has gone through his inauguration, the whole nation would see, the whole nation is going to know. Pretty soon they're going to roll out coins with his face on, right? We all watched the royal family inaugurate King, I think it's King Charles, one of them British names. But we all saw it happen. Does he need to walk around with a crown all the time now? Does he need? No, he doesn't. Because
Right.
we all know he's that guy in Buckingham Palace. If he walks down the street, we're gonna know he's different because of
Yeah.
what comes with his kingship is also those he's surrounded by. He's not
Yeah.
just strolling out there with a bunch of nobodies. He's got squad with him. So this
Yeah.
idea of God crowning us with glory, when I know I've been crowned with glory, I'm like, God, thank you, but I don't need that.
Right.
You can have it right back. I don't need it because I came here for you. But there's
Yep.
some people that I believe, and this is maybe my creative mind, that God has already crowned you with favor already because of his son Jesus. And they've taken that crown and they're like, all right, cool. And they've ran out to the world. And it's this idea of like, wait a minute, the 10 lepers, only one came back. I want to be the one that came. I want to be the one that comes back.
Yeah. That's good. That's good, man. Scribe, thank you so much for stopping by the show. Give us like a little 1 minute kind of what's on the horizon for Scribe for this year, and then
Mhm.
we'll get into some more music.
For sure. Man, this year I have the absolute honor of really diving into being a part of building the music department in my church.
Nice.
We are so blessed to have um, a creative pastor who has experience in the Christian hip hop world. His name is Terrence Richmond. Many people from the Bay may know him as Rev Rich. He's mentored Miles Minnick. You know, he's mentored Mission and
Oh
V
wow.
Rose. Like, yeah, like he been in the game for a minute and is crazy gifted. Has such an eye for art and music and worship. That's really at the core of who he is. And so being in that community, we've been afforded the opportunity to say, okay, we could really do this. So we're gonna I get to play a role in being part of, helping us create songs, produce songs. We're gonna be working on his upcoming album. I'm not gonna say nothing about it.
Okay.
But I'm really diving into seeing what God is doing in my local community with music. I do have album concepts. I do have music, guys. But I want to honor God's timing. It's
Mhm.
super important for me to honor God's timing, because that way, when I release a song, it is free of sorrow, right? The blessing of the Lord is without sorrow. And
Yeah.
so I'm writing, I'm working, but it's a lot of behind the scenes work, loving on my family. The organization I'm a part of, Apologetics Canada, you could check it out if you want to. We have a lot of different video projects coming up. I'll be going to Malawi in May to shoot
Wow.
a video
Nice.
series. Yeah. So really just delving into a lot of the ministry that God has me in my home base, in my
Yeah.
circles, and just know that when that music season comes, man, it's gonna come from like a really deeply rooted place, and I believe an encouraging place. So
That's great.
I'll be around the way. Come hang out with me on Twitter.
Got you. And I'll say this, and I'll let you go. I think it's really dope that you just talked about something that you're doing as far as figuring out God's pace and walking and running, and then you're actually doing it. Like
Mhm.
it's just not something that you just put in your lyrics just because it sounds good and it's a nice concept. Like you're actually an example of that in your life. So blessings to you and your wife
Appreciate
Jasmine
you.
and your kids. Blessings to you and your church, and all that your hands are going to touch there. Holy Culture family, if you don't know Scribe Music, I encourage you to check out his album from last year. No, actually an EP, one of my favorite EPs from last year, Scribe and the Wildlings. It's a dope project. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our next break, and then I'll get you guys some music on the back end. So once again, this has been an extended halftime pep talk with Scribe Music. I am B+, and I'll see you on the other side.